The first time I saw the drawing, I thought it was a joke. Crayons, smiley stick figures, me with blonde hair, my husband holding someone else's hand, and a heart between them. I stared at it for a full 10 seconds before forcing a smile and asking, "Honey, who's this?" My son, Leo, 5 years old, Lego-obsessed, future chaos agent, beamed up at me from the kitchen table. "That's Daddy, and that's Miss Sarah." I blinked. "Miss Sarah from school?" Leo shook his head. "No, Daddy's friend. We see her on Tuesdays." I dropped the drawing. Tuesdays were my late shift. I knelt down. "Where do you see her?" He thought for a second. "Sometimes in her car. She gives me fruit snacks. But Daddy says don't tell you, 'cause it's a boy secret." I felt the blood drain from my face. "No more secrets, okay, baby?" "Okay," he said, already back to coloring. I stood, numb, and stared at the paper. Blonde woman, bigger boobs than me if the crayon ovals were to scale. My husband, Tyler, even had his dorky glasses drawn on. Heart between them. I snapped a photo, sent it to my best friend Marnie. "Me, tell me this looks innocent." She responded in 10 seconds. "Marnie, bitch, that's not you." I stared at the screen, heart pounding. Tyler got home an hour later. Same gentle knock, same fake smile, same boring khakis. He kissed my cheek, grabbed a beer, and flopped on the couch like he hadn't just detonated a landmine in our house. I walked in holding the drawing. "Leo made this today." He glanced at it, smiled. "Aw, cute." I held it closer. "Who's Miss Sarah?" His face didn't change. Then, he must have meant his art teacher. Leo said he sees her in a car. Tyler raised an eyebrow. "Kids make stuff up all the time." He said she gives him fruit snacks. A beat. Then the gaslight dropped. "Jules, come on. You really think I'm cheating because of a 5-year-old's crayon drawing?" I didn't blink. "Yes." He scoffed. "This is exactly why we're stuck in therapy. You spiral over nothing. You want drama." I wanted to slap him. Instead, I walked out, grabbed my coat, and drove to the psychic. Yeah, the psychic. Because 2 months ago, in a haze of frustration and suspicion, I booked a reading on a whim. A woman named Celine, tattooed knuckles, eyes like wet glass, said she didn't read futures, only warnings. She pulled a single card, the Lovers. And then she wrote something on a piece of paper and sealed it in an envelope. She said, "Don't open it until you feel the fracture." Tonight, that envelope came out of my purse with trembling hands. I opened it in the parking lot. The paper said, "Not his, not yours, hers. She drives a gray Civic. You already know the color of her nails." I nearly threw up. I did know. Fluorescent peach. Tyler had come home with a faint scratch across his neck 3 weeks ago. I'd asked what happened. He said Leo got too excited during tickle time. But Leo's fingernails were bitten to nubs. I sat in my car until midnight, shaking. Then I drove home. Tyler was asleep, snoring like nothing was broken. I sat on the floor of the bathroom with the envelope in my lap and cried. The next morning, I told Leo he'd be late for school. Then I dressed nice, fixed my hair, and told Tyler, "You forgot your gym bag." He looked confused. "I'm not going to the gym today." I smiled. "You are now." He stared at me. Then his phone buzzed. He looked down, swiped it fast. Too fast. I caught a glimpse of the name. S. That night, I borrowed Marnie's car and waited in the parking lot outside our local yoga studio. At exactly 6:57 p.m., Tyler pulled in. He wasn't in workout clothes. He got into a gray Civic. It drove off. The driver? Fluorescent peach nails on the steering wheel. I followed. Hands gripping the wheel, mind racing, every card Celine ever pulled running through my head. They parked front of an apartment complex on the edge of town. He got out. She got out too. He kissed her. On the mouth. Then picked up our son from the back seat. Leo. Smiling. As he walked inside with them, I realized this wasn't an affair. It was a second life. I didn't know how long I sat there. The Civic was still parked, the apartment lights flicked on. Leo's silhouette skipped past the window, holding something. Probably his damn Legos, the ones I thought he only played with in our living room. And then I saw her. Blonde. Younger than me. Tighter. Wearing a sweatshirt that looked an awful lot like one of Tyler's old college hoodies. She walked past the window holding a glass of wine, then bent down to kiss Leo on the head. Like it was her kid. Like they were the family. I couldn't stop shaking. I didn't cry, didn't scream. I just reached for my phone and started taking pictures. Each one more damning than the last. Tyler on the couch, Leo on her lap, the woman pulling out what looked like a folded-up drawing board, the kind you'd use to display a kid's artwork. I felt sick. My fingers hovered over the call button. Marnie would pick up, she always did, but something told me this wasn't a speakerphone moment. I zoomed in on the woman's face. She looked familiar. Not just familiar. Known. Then I remembered. Last Halloween, the block party, Leo had run ahead to the bouncy castle and Tyler followed. I stayed behind, chatting with the neighbor, Sandra. A woman came up to Tyler, touched his arm, whispered something. I thought she was just a clingy PTA mom. Her nails, fluorescent peach. Tyler said her name was Sam. He said she was new to the neighborhood. He never mentioned she lived across town, never said she had a kid-friendly apartment, or that our son had drawn her into our family. The psychic's note echoed in my head. Not his, not yours, hers. My vision blurred. I was halfway home when Marnie called. "Are you okay? You haven't texted." I found her. "Who?" "Miss Sarah or Sam or whoever the fuck she is." "You mean Leo's art teacher?" "No, I mean the woman who's been playing house with my kid while I work late shifts and Tyler lies to my face." Silence. Then, "You're at DEFCON 5, huh?" I took pictures. I have proof. "Good. You need to confront him, but not alone." "No," I said. "I want to let him lie first. I want to watch it." The next morning, I staged it. I laid out Leo's drawing on the kitchen table with Celine's envelope beside it. Then I made breakfast like nothing happened. French toast, bacon, smiled like a sitcom wife. Tyler walked in, hair still wet, tie crooked. "Wow, breakfast? Fancy." I kissed his cheek. "Felt like spoiling you." His eyes flicked to the drawing on the table. "Leo's been on an art kick lately, huh?" I waited. Nothing. I pushed it forward. "He said this woman's name is Sarah, said she gives him fruit snacks, that they have boy secrets." He laughed. Laughed! "Jules, are we seriously doing this again? He's 5. Kids invent friends. He probably made her up." "She drives a gray Civic." The smile faltered. "What?" "She has fluorescent peach nails. She lives across town in an apartment with a saggy couch and a window that faces the parking lot." His face drained. I leaned closer. "And you take our son there." He stepped back. "You've been spying on me?" "No," I said coolly. "Leo drew you both in crayons, and my psychic left me a sealed envelope predicting your second life." Silence. Then, he tried it. The nuclear gaslight. You're not well, Jules. This obsession, the paranoia, you're not sleeping, you're hallucinating. I slammed my phone down on the table. The screen lit up with the photo of him kissing Sarah, another with Leo in the background, another of the apartment window. Tell me again I'm hallucinating. He looked like he wanted to vomit. And then he smiled. You weren't supposed to find out this way. That stopped me cold. Excuse me? He stepped forward, suddenly calm. I was gonna tell you. End things. Clean. Peaceful. But then you started seeing that fucking psychic. My stomach twisted. What does Celine have to do with this? He said she used to work for Sarah's ex. He was obsessed with the occult, made Celine part of his therapy practice. Dream decoding, psychic triggers, bullshit like that. She saw what we were doing and decided to screw with you. I blinked. What you were doing? His voice dropped. I wasn't cheating, Jules. I was co-parenting. Leo's not just our son. I couldn't breathe. What do you mean? Tyler stepped aside and slid a manila folder across the table. Inside, printed document. Birth certificate. But not Leo's. Another child's. Mother, Sarah L. Father, Tyler R. Sibling, Leo R. Listed as half-brother. I looked up, and then the doorbell rang. Tyler didn't flinch. She's here, he said, and she wants to meet you.
I didn't move. Couldn't. My brain was still trying to catch up to the sentence he just said. Leo's not just our son. She's here. I wanted to scream, cry, laugh, anything, but I just stood frozen as Tyler calmly walked to the door, like this was just another morning and not the implosion of our entire marriage. He opened it, and there she was. Blonde, thin, no makeup, but glowing. Wearing my husband's hoodie like it belonged to her, holding the hand of a little girl, maybe 3, maybe 4, with brown curls, bright eyes, in a face that made my chest cave in. Because she looked just like Leo. Same dimple, same half smile, same exact nose. Tyler turned, gesturing toward them like a damn game show host. Jules, this is Sarah, and this, he squeezed the girl's hand, is Lily. Sarah smiled like this was a goddamn brunch. I've heard so much about you, she said. I blinked. Have you? She glanced around our entryway like she was casing the place. Leo talks about you all the time. He says you make the best pancakes. I stared at her, then at the little girl, Lily, who was now busy peeking at Leo's toys scattered by the stairs. I looked at Tyler. What is this? He rubbed his neck. It's time. No more secrets. We're a blended family now. Blended? Sarah stepped in like she lived here. We thought we'd start doing joint pickups. Easier for the kids. I nearly choked. Joint what? Tyler, what the fuck are you talking about? I told you, he said softly, as if I was the unstable one. Leo and Lily are siblings. Half, but still, they should know each other. This tension isn't healthy, and you love kids. Love? I spun towards Sarah. Did you know he was married? When you got pregnant? She shrugged. He said you were separating. Oh, that's rich. He said you were emotionally manipulative, she added, eyes hard now. That you had these spirals, that you used your son to keep him trapped. I laughed, actually laughed. Did he also tell you I paid for his grad school, or that I was working double so he could find himself, or that I... But then my voice cracked, because Leo came running down the stairs at that exact moment. Miss Sarah, he yelled, hugging her waist. My knees buckled. She knelt down and smiled. Hey, buddy. Tyler picked up Lily and hoisted her onto his hip like he'd done it 1,000 times. And maybe he had. I backed up like I could physically escape the scene happening in my own house. "I need you all to leave," I said. Tyler looked pained. "Jules, now." He nodded and led Sarah and Lily out like it was no big deal. Just a quick introduction before soccer practice. The door closed behind them, and I broke. I collapsed in the foyer, gasping. My body shook so hard I thought I'd black out. The birth certificate, the photos, the drawing, the fucking psychic. I had nothing left to doubt. Except one thing. I dug into the kitchen drawer, the one where we kept receipts and junk mail and Leo's art projects. I pulled out the folder I'd used to store his birth records. And I checked the name on the original certificate. Leo R. Mother, Julia R. Father, Tyler R. I flipped it over. There was a sticky note in my handwriting from years ago. "Keep copy for daycare enrollment." But behind it, another sheet of paper, one I didn't recognize. It was a hospital intake form. Patient, Leo R. Mother, Julia R. Father, unlisted. I blinked. What? I checked the timestamps. The hospital record was dated 2 days before the birth certificate. I flipped it again. The signature on the certificate wasn't mine. It looked close, but it wasn't mine. I pulled up a photo of my own signature from a lease agreement and held it side by side. Different curl on the J, slight hesitation on the loop. Forged. Forged. The doorbell rang again. I didn't move. The ringing kept going. When I finally opened it, there was no one there. Just an envelope on the mat. Inside, a postcard, a co-photocopy of Celine's original tarot reading sheet, only this one had a line I never saw before. "She will raise what isn't hers. He will plant lies in 2 homes. The sibling isn't yours either." And scrawled at the bottom in Celine's distinct handwriting, "Ask whose womb they really came from." The phrase, "ask whose womb they really came from," burned in my hands. It was the kind of sentence that doesn't land all at once. It slinks into your spine like poison. I read it again and again until the words stopped being words and just became threats. The sibling isn't yours either. Not mine. Not Sarah's. Who the hell gave birth to Leo and Lily? I collapsed onto the stairs, clutching the envelope. My heart was beating too loud to think. I knew Celine's handwriting. Knew her ink. She used that heavy gel pen with a chipped moon charm on the cap. She used paper that smelled faintly of eucalyptus and ash. And this sheet was exactly that. But I'd never seen this line before. She'd either withheld it, or someone had slipped a second version into my world. I needed answers. I needed Celine. I grabbed my keys, threw on a hoodie, and drove across town. Her shop, the Glass Veil, sat between a vape store and a Thai takeout joint, both of which were open. But the lights in Celine's window were off. I knocked. Waited. Nothing. I peered through the window. The room was empty. Shelves bare, table gone, candles removed, no trace. Like she'd vanished. Like she'd never been there. My phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. I answered. "Jules," said a voice. My blood turned to ice. "Celine? Don't go back home." "What? Why? What's happening?" "I warned you once. I should have done more, but I thought if you saw the drawing, if you opened the envelope—" "I did. What does it mean? Whose kids are they?" She exhaled, shaky and close. "Not Tyler's, not yours, not Sarah's either." "Then who?" "You were part of a surrogate study, a trial. That hospital where Leo was born, Springview Regional, they had a research partnership with a private fertility lab. They used IVF, unapproved embryos." No. I carried him. I felt him kick. I have photos." "Yes, you carried someone else's embryo. They implanted it without your knowledge. That's why your intake file says unlisted for father. It was a donor.
You were the host. My brain cracked down the middle. Tyler knew? Celine paused. Yes, eventually. He was in debt. They paid couples to stay quiet. Sarah's pregnancy wasn't natural either. She got the same package. They called it emotional replication therapy. See how similar environments shape genetically engineered siblings in parallel homes. I'm going to throw up, I whispered. You need to listen to me. They'll try to reabsorb the data now that you've deviated from the program. Tyler's been managing it, keeping both homes on script. On script? She didn't answer. Just the sound of tires screeching, a car pulling up, then dial tone. I screamed her name. Nothing. I sat there in the car, completely unraveled. Everything in my life, my son, my marriage, my body, was built on someone else's lie. I couldn't go home. I didn't trust the house, the baby photos, the documents. I needed something unhackable, something untouched. I drove to my mom's. She opened the door and hugged me before I could explain. An hour later, we were on the floor of her basement, flipping through the old plastic tub labeled Jules' baby stuff. Inside, journals, calendars, an old birth plan printout. She'd helped me prep it before Leo came, but now I was looking at it with new eyes. My birth plan had one section I never paid attention to before. Blood type AB negative, partner's blood type O positive, and Leo's hospital records, they listed him as B positive, which was medically impossible. I felt like I'd been punched in the throat. Mom looked at me, tears in her eyes. Jules, what's going on? I don't think Leo is mine, I whispered. She didn't flinch. Instead, she reached under the tub and pulled out a second folder. I've been waiting for this, she said. Inside, a printed email exchange between her and a woman named Dr. Veronica Hale, fertility researcher, CryoNova Laboratories. Date: 2 weeks before my scheduled C-section. Subject: pre-trial consent documentation for patient number 12A, Julia R. My mom had written, I want confirmation that my daughter's baby will be returned to her regardless of outcome. And Dr. Hale had replied, as long as no anomalies appear during bonding assessments, custody remains assigned, but backup surrogates will be briefed in case of rejection. I dropped the papers. You knew? Tears streamed down my face. You had been trying for years. You were so happy. I couldn't ruin it. I stood up, breath ragged. So I was assigned Leo like a foster dog? He's yours, she said desperately. He's yours now. But all I heard was Celine's final warning echoing in my skull. Ask whose womb they really came from. And then my phone buzzed again. A new photo message from an anonymous number. It was Leo, sleeping, in a bed I didn't recognize. Caption: time to return the asset.
I bolted from the basement. Didn't say goodbye, didn't take the folder, didn't care that my mom was sobbing behind me, because everything she ever protected me from had just come home to roost, with my son at the center. Asset. That was the word in the message. Not child, not boy, not Leo. Asset. Like he was a file, a lab sample, a fucking product. I jumped in the car, adrenaline drowning out everything else, and opened the photo again. Leo was curled up, asleep, holding his stuffed dinosaur. His blanket was the one from our house, but the bed frame wasn't familiar. Too sterile, too unlived in. White headboard, no posters, clean floor. There was a nightlight on the wall, whale-shaped. I zoomed in and caught something, just the edge of a door plate reflected in the nightlight's glow. Room 04. Observation. I nearly crashed the car. I pulled over panting, heart screaming in my chest.
Observation room? I texted the number back. If you hurt him, I'll end you. No response. I called Tyler. Straight to voicemail. I called Sarah. Blocked. I opened Facebook and searched her profile. Gone. I searched Celine's name. Nothing. I tried Googling CryoNova Observation Room 04. Most results were gibberish, except one. A PDF uploaded anonymously to a conspiracy site. Title, Mirror Home Trial, Parent Behavior Cycles V4.2, CryoNova Internal Use Only. It included a diagram, 2 homes, one labeled Control Female, the mother unaware of surrogacy, the other labeled Responsive Male, the father actively managing data submission, and in the center, the asset child, noted as observed for parental influence under dual attachment simulation, memory conditioning optional, reclamation after subject escalation event. I nearly vomited on the steering wheel. That was me. Control Female. I'd been used as a baseline test for emotional conditioning. All the fights, all the therapy, all the spirals Tyler accused me of. Engineered. Triggered responses. Observed breakdowns. They wanted to see what it would take to crack me open. And now they'd escalated. They'd reclaimed Leo. I raced to the police, sat across from a tight-faced woman in a gray blazer, and told her everything. The surrogate lie, the psychic, the envelope, the photos, the message. She stared at me for a full minute, then said, "Do you have legal custody of your son?" I blinked. "I'm his mother." She tapped her keyboard. "Birth certificate lists you, yes, but the hospital record we're seeing has unlisted paternity and a missing genetic match from the state database." What does that mean? It means CryoNova filed a hold on biometric verification due to an ongoing clinical guardianship review. I froze. That's not a real thing. She looked me dead in the eye. "Ma'am, it is now." They'd changed the system. They'd rewritten reality. I went home, our home, shaking. The front door was open. The place looked untouched. Until I reached Leo's room. Empty. His books, his art, his drawings, gone. Only one thing left behind. A crumpled piece of paper on the floor. I picked it up. It was a new drawing. Stick figures. 3 this time. One labeled me, with blonde hair. One labeled Daddy, with Tyler's glasses. And a third figure labeled New Mommy. She had red hair. I didn't. Sarah didn't. I flipped the paper over, scrawled in uneven kid writing. She said she lives in the glass. My knees buckled, because that's what Celine called her practice. The glass veil. I crawled to my laptop, opened an archived version of her old site, scrolled through cached pages. On the About tab, I found something I'd never noticed. A testimonial from a woman named Renee. It read, "After 6 months of sessions with Celine, I finally got the child I dreamed of. The vision board exercise was so real, it felt like he walked right out of the glass." I clicked her name. It linked to a blog, now deleted, but one post title showed in the search snippet. "My womb couldn't carry, but I was matched with a dream surrogate. They said I didn't even need to meet her. My vision went white. I wasn't Leo's mother by miracle. I was Leo's mother by design. A dream surrogate. A ghost incubator. My phone pinged again. New message. A video. Leo, awake, sitting in a white room, drawing again. A woman with red hair knelt beside him. She smiled sweetly and said, "Okay, baby, now let's draw your real family."
I watched the video on loop. Every pixel burned into my brain. The woman's soft voice, Leo's blank expression, the white walls behind them. He wasn't scared. He wasn't crying. He was quiet, compliant. Like someone had turned down the volume on his soul. The red-haired woman, she had that unnerving calm you only ever see in cult documentaries or brainwashing movies. Her face was unremarkable, but her presence, chilling. The way she spoke to Leo wasn't maternal. It was clinical, like she was training a lab animal to mimic love. I threw my phone across the room. It cracked against the dresser. I didn't care. I needed answers, real ones. And there was only one person left who might give them to me. Marnie. I hadn't told her everything, just the crumbs. But she'd always believed me when no one else did. If anyone could help me dig deeper into CryoNova, it was her. I called. She answered on the first ring. "I was just about to call you." "Why?" "Because someone just tried to recruit me." "What?" She spoke fast. "A woman came into my cafe this morning, said she was from a parental optimization group, asked if I'd be interested in fostering a high-empathy child for a government-backed behavioral study. She mentioned your name." I nearly dropped the phone. "What name did she use?" "Julia R. She said I was listed as your secondary support figure in the surrogate registry." "What the fuck?" "She said you were stepping back from care due to emotional volatility, that the child would benefit from someone closer to the stability arc." "I didn't sign anything, Jules, I swear. I told her to fuck off and leave." I was hyperventilating. They're replacing me. Not just in Leo's life, erasing me. Marnie went silent for a beat. Then, "You need to go nuclear." What does that even mean? I've been digging. That woman with red hair, her name is Renee Langston. She used to work in biotech marketing. Her LinkedIn is scrubbed, but I found fragments on an old parent forum. She sent me a screenshot. Renee. Red hair. Same woman from the video. Caption. "Every child deserves a calibrated environment. Emotionally optimized parenting is the future." I choked. Another screenshot followed, an archived forum thread titled CryoNova Trial Parents. Anyone else feeling like we're being watched? One comment from a user named WokeMom42 stood out. "My surrogate was never allowed to know my name. I got updates from a coordinator who said she was unstable. The kid's personality changes overnight. This isn't a trial. It's a fucking script." Another post followed. "When I asked too many questions, they offered me a replacement child, said they'd reassign my asset to another pairing cycle. I said no. They took him anyway." I stared at the screen, bile rising. Then Marnie said something that cracked the whole thing open. "They're not choosing parents to test parenting. They're choosing narratives, plugging kids into different trauma arcs, tracking how love, fake or real, can be designed." It clicked. Leo wasn't the product. The story was. Every betrayal, every lie, every twist of the knife. They were building a library of emotional templates to sell to future parents like Renee. This is how a child reacts when a mother spirals. This is how attachment rewires when a sibling is introduced via deception. This is how trust breaks when the father maintains dual realities. They weren't interested in children. They were cataloging drama. They were turning my goddamn grief into market data. I opened Leo's baby photos, looked into his soft brown eyes, the ones that used to light up when he saw me at daycare pickup. Then I looked at the new video again. Same eyes, dimmed, like they'd stopped being his. A final message buzzed in from the same anonymous number. All storylines eventually collapse. Thank you for your contribution. Cycle closed. Attached was a file. An adoption certificate. Leo. Adopted by Renee Langston. Dated last week. Signed by Tyler R. I screamed, a noise so raw I didn't recognize it as mine. And that's when it hit me. They weren't just taking Leo. They were filing paperwork to prove he'd never been mine. They were editing the truth. And if I didn't stop them now, every trace of our life would be overwritten like a corrupted file. I looked at Marnie. I need one last thing. What? I need you to find the original hospital footage from Leo's birth, the delivery room. If I didn't give birth to him, someone did. I want to know whose blood they buried in my name. Because if I couldn't stop them through the courts or the cops, I'd burn their source code instead.
The footage was never supposed to exist. That's what hospitals say, that delivery rooms don't record video for privacy reasons, that only security cameras cover entrances, that HIPAA regulations keep things sealed. But Marnie? She found it. She hacked into an old IT admin's cloud backups, an overworked subcontractor CryoNova had used to manage Springview's digital infrastructure back in 2017. She dug through years of encrypted folders, mislabeled files, corrupted thumbnails, and there it was. int obs del 12a.mov. Timestamped 3 days before Leo's official birth certificate. We watched it together. Sitting on the floor of her apartment, blinds drawn, sound turned low. The video began mid-push. I could see myself, sweating, screaming, but I was drugged, not fully conscious. Eyes glassy, head lolling. Doctors buzzed around me, but the angle didn't feel right. There was a second woman in the room, blonde, hooked up to a monitor in the corner, face turned away, breathing heavy. Another gurney, another monitor, 2 women laboring. I felt sick. Then came the baby's pry. One doctor caught the infant and nodded to someone off camera. He didn't bring the baby to either woman. He handed the child to a nurse in a red vest. The nurse left the frame immediately. Then chaos. The lights flickered. Someone said, "Switch her out now before she sees." I watched in horror as the blonde woman was wheeled out first, still conscious, tears streaming down her cheeks. They replaced her with a third woman, wheeled in under a blanket. Me, eyes closed, already stitched up, already cleaned, already holding Leo. My jaw dropped. I never gave birth. I was the photo op. I was the post-production insert. Marnie stared at the screen, horrified. She said, "They built your motherhood like a fucking movie set." And then we heard the final voice on the tape, faint at the edge of the frame. Female, confident. Mark this one as Julia R., control female. It was Renee. I stood up like I'd been electrocuted. My entire motherhood, my identity, was a branding exercise. A case study in what happens when a woman believes something hard enough she'll defend it with her life. Leo was never mine, but they made me need him like he was. That was the real experiment. Not empathy, not trauma, but obsession. I didn't go to the police. I didn't go to the media. They'd call me insane, or worse, cooperative. So I went to the press release office of CryoNova itself. I walked into their pristine headquarters wearing a fake badge Marnie generated with Photoshop and 3 online templates. I made it to the 14th floor before they stopped me. "You can't be here," a woman said, clipboard in hand. I smiled. "I'm just returning an asset." Then I plugged in the USB. The video played on every screen in their lobby. The birth footage, the nurse swap, Renee's voice. Within minutes, security swarmed. But the interns, the admins, the contractors, they all had phones. They all recorded. And before they could shut it down, the clip was online. Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Reddit. It spread. Hashtag not his, not mine, hers. Hashtag the surrogate lie. Hashtag CryoNova exposed. I was gone before the FBI arrived. The next week was a blur. The company folded within days. Whistleblowers came out of the woodwork. Archived documents surfaced, legal waivers, falsified consent forms, empathy compliance reports. Tyler? Arrested. Sarah? Vanished. Renee? Under federal investigation. But Leo? Still missing. Until one morning there was a knock on Marnie's door. I opened it, expecting a summons. Instead, I saw her. The blonde woman from the delivery room. Older now, thin, haunted, and holding Leo's hand. He looked up at me, paused, then said, "You're in my dreams." The woman, his biological mother, whispered, "He asked for you. He always asked for you." I dropped to my knees crying and hugged him, not as his mother, but as the woman who chose him again and again, even when it was a lie. He hugged back, not as a son, but as the boy who had always known somehow that love doesn't need permission, just memory. They tried to erase me. They turned my life into a script, but I wrote the ending. And this time, no one gets to cast me again.